As you watch this, I'm either currently in Maryland attending the open house at System Source Museum, or I'm fresh back from it. I'm not quite sure how the schedule is going to line up here with editing and everything like that. But before I left for Maryland, there was something that I wanted to tackle that's been bothering me for a while, and that has to do with my server here in the house. And you'll notice that my server looks a little like a Centurion, and that's because my home network and storage server that I use to store all of my edited videos on is in the counterfeit Centurion cabinet, which has been kept inside out of the elements, safe and sound, but just having an empty cabinet inside's a massive waste of space. So it made sense to put the server in it because 19-inch rack is a 19-inch rack. However, it's a shame to have a Centurion inside that isn't a Centurion. So at the bottom of this cabinet, I do have a Centurion card cage. I just need to build a power supply for it and get it all plugged in. And then maybe get that thing plugged into my network, and then I can start doing some really fun stuff. The lighting in here is pretty terrible, but let's just go ahead and walk through everything that's making up my home server, home network cabinet here. Right on top is a DEC LA50 dot matrix printer. This is what I print all of my scripts on. The paper, tractor feed paper for this, you can still pick up at like Staples. The ribbons are like $10. I can print thousands and thousands and thousands of sheets for less than pennies. It's so much cheaper to use an old dot matrix if you're printing out text-based stuff like scripts or shot lists or things like that. So this thing is a proper workhorse and gets used almost every day. My entire home network would not be where it is without the gracious help of MX Shift. So MX Shift, if you're watching, thank you so much for absolutely everything. This server actually was from MX Shift. This is a Cisco UCS C240 M3. It has 12 drive bays. 10 of them are populated with 4 terabyte drives, and 2 of them have 3 terabyte drives in it. The 2 3 terabytes are redundant copies of the OS, which is TrueNAS scale. The remaining 10 are 40 terabytes in a RAID Z2 configuration, which gives me a single 30 terabyte logical volume. But it means that I can lose up to 2 drives without losing any data. So this is a nice, wonderful, redundant way to store all of the data that gets generated while making videos for YouTube. Below that is the heart of the home network. We have a Ubiquity Edge router here that can do load balancing or failover between our 2 internet sources. So that way I always have some kind of internet as a backup whenever one or the other goes down. And then up here we have the Edge Switch 16 that is the primary switch for the house. Here we've got all of our desktops plugged into that, as well as the Wi-Fi puck and a wireless bridge that goes out to the shop, so we have Wi-Fi out there, and it's like one of the best pieces of equipment I've ever used. It's dead nuts reliable all the time. And then we have this generic rack mount ATX case, and inside of it is just a ATX motherboard, an old scrap one that I had. My goal with this was to get it hooked up to the network and start using it to back up everything on the server to an LTO6 tape drive. And somebody very graciously donated this LTO6 drive to me, and I promptly broke it. It won't load tapes. It won't even load a tape once I pull it out. I have to reach inside and pull the sled out and pop it. And then if I try to load a tape, it makes a horrible clacking noise. So it's all been powered off for months. Someday I'll sit down and take this tape drive apart, and hopefully I can get it repaired. But for the moment, this is just taking up space, unfortunately. And down here's where the real excitement is. This is a TrippLite BO96 serial console server. This essentially supplies 16 RS-232 serial ports and connects them up to your network, so that way you can SSH into this box and remotely control anything on these serial ports. Right now I just have the LA50 printer on top plugged into port 1, but below that is, boy, this is what we're really here for today. This is the CPU5 card cage. It has the CPU5 processor card, the Disk 1, Disk 2 controller card for the Hawk drive, a 4-port MUX card, and the 32K memory card. My goal, the reason that this thing is bolted into this cabinet, is that I want to get all 4 of those MUX ports plugged into the TrippLite serial console server up here, and ultimately someday get it hooked up to the internet. Now there's a couple of big honking problems with this, and the first is storage. I don't have any storage for the CPU5 Centurion. Sure, I could remove the rack mount ATX case and open up enough space to slip a Hawk drive in here, but if I bring that jet engine inside, I'm going to be sleeping outside, so we're not doing that. So for the moment, we're just soldering on without any storage, but that raises the question of like, what can we do? How can we even confirm that this thing is working without storage? Well, we've got the Diag card that we got from Ken Romaine, and that has a memory monitor on it. So my goal today is to get the CPU5 properly mounted, a power supply for it built, and then have it plugged into the serial terminal server so I can SSH in and use the memory monitor to adjust and change values from my desktop in the other room. I think that would be absolutely epic, and it's a great first step towards our overall bigger journey here. But first things first, we gotta build a power supply for this thing. I'm going to reuse the plus 5 volt, plus 12 volt, and minus 12 volt Meanwells that were originally powering this thing when it was in the mini Centurion cabinet. The CPU5 ran flawlessly off of these supplies for years, so they should work perfectly. I also need to move over the little 555 timer that I use to create a 60 Hz signal for the line time clock that the CPU needs. With the supplies mounted to a backing plate, I gotta figure out where to stash them in the rack. After spinning down the storage server so I don't accidentally crash a drive, I'll slide the whole cabinet out and then pop off the side door. The Centurion card cage is mounted in a weird spot, so I need to just pull it out completely and start fresh here. The cabinet has provisions for 4 120mm fans on the bottom. These were originally 120 volt boxer fans, but in the mini Centurion I ran 2 120mm and 2 80mm fans off of 12 volts, so I'm just going to reuse those for now. Ultimately I need to upgrade this to some proper high flow 12 volt 120mm fans, but this is going to be fine for now because it was fine when it was in the mini Centurion. With the fans mounted, I'll slide the card cage back into its proper place, which then opened up a nice little spot behind it to mount the power supply. Now that everything is bolted into place, I can start the long, tedious job of getting all the DC wiring run. It's a bunch of very short wires, but it ended up looking decently tidy. I'm happy with that. Next, I need to get the front LED panel properly mounted back in its original location. It looks great to have the LEDs poking through their original cutouts again. Then the push buttons for reset and boot drive select go back in, and finally the original power switch gets bolted back into place. Boy, it sure does look amazing to have this front panel all populated again. That's been on my to-do list for about a year now. Let's give this thing a test. I'll flip the power strip on, supplying AC to the power switch, and I don't have a key for this switch, so I gotta pick it. Fortunately, it's a little wafer lock, and a wave rake is almost faster than using the actual key. For this first test, I removed every card, then slotted in my extender, which brings all the voltage rails right out front for easy testing. This way I can check that everything is wired up correctly without risking any of the delicate electronics. And yep, looks like we have a very good plus 5 volts, minus 12 volts, and plus 12 volts. I think we're good to slot the cards in and give it a proper test. But first I need to connect the front panel to the backplane and CPU. The ribbon cables are a bit of a bear to get plugged into the front panel, but the backplane is much easier to access. And of course the CPU5 is front and center, and that ribbon cable plugs in with ease. Okay, I've got all the cards plugged back in. I've got the ribbon cables run. I've got power run. If we flip this switch, we should see some blinking lights up here. So here we go. First proper power up. Again, I still don't have a key for this, so I gotta pick it every time. There we go, that is now free. Let's flip the switch. Oh, we do have lights. Heck yeah, let's go. It says it's running. Well, the reset seems to be doing what it's supposed to do. Let's get a terminal hooked up to it and see what it's doing. Now, getting a terminal hooked up to it is not exactly trivial. While the MUX card does have 4 DE9 outputs on it, the pinout of those DE9 connectors is not the standard serial 9-pin that we're used to. This predates that standard by like 10 years. Thankfully, I've already got multiple cables that I've made up that go from Centurion 9-pin to a standard DB25 here for serial. However, I want to plug this into my laptop for initial testing, so I need to go from the DB25 back down to 9-pin into one of these USB to RS-232 things. But when the machine is in there, we're actually going to need to go from the Centurion 9-pin to a RJ, oh man, I'm gonna get this wrong. RJ45 is what I'm gonna say, but if the number's wrong, please don't light me on fire. This is too new for my usual antics. So This, I think, is the standard Cisco pinout. This will plug into our serial terminal server, and then we should be able to SSH in once I get the terminal server set up correctly. But first things first, let's get the laptop up and going. Okay, over here on the laptop, I've got minicom fired up, but we do need to do a little bit of serial port setup here. So I'm gonna pop into that. We do want it to be dev TTY USB, but what we need to change here is setting E. And this is indeed 9600, but it's actually 7E1. So I'm just gonna push the R key, and you can see up top, it's set it to 9600 7E1. So we're just gonna hit enter again there. We'll tap and escape, go down to exit. And now minicom is up and running. So if I turn this on, we should see a D equals prompt here. So here goes nothing. Let's turn the power switch on. Okay. That feels like it should be a D equals prompt, but it's not being encoded correctly. Oh! This is the MUX card that I modified to be stuck at 4800 because we were using it with a data terminal that couldn't work any faster than that. So I've got to change that. So let's do a Control-A-Z here. Let's figure out what the setting is here. And either I'm crazy or I'm just not seeing it. I don't know how to change it again. So we're just gonna exit minicom, and then we'll run it again here. Let me go back into serial port setup, and we're gonna go E and change it from 9600 to 4800. So we're gonna hit B to drop it down to 4800. I'll hit enter on that, hit enter. Let's just save that setup as default, which is probably gonna bite me later in life. We'll hit exit. Now I'll hit the select key. There it is, D equals. If I type H1, it's gonna try and boot from the Hawk drive, which doesn't exist, but we get an error. That means that the Centurion is largely working. And that's 2 days come and gone, which means it's time to pack, hop in the car, and head out to the airport for a short 2-hour flight out to Maryland for the System Source open house. If you haven't been following the Bendix G15 series, System Source Museum in Maryland sent a 1956 Bendix G15 vacuum tube computer down to Texas for restoration. We got it up and running and sent it back up to Maryland after about 2 years, where it's now the oldest running digital computer in North America. This open house was so that anyone who could make it could get hands-on with the actual machine and use it. And the open house was going wonderfully on Friday, right up until I violently broke the machine. So what happened? Well, the G15 is constructed in an interesting way in that the paper tape reader and paper tape punch are on this sled that can slide in and out for service. Now, about 2 years ago, the first time I powered this up, I unfortunately didn't have the camera running, and as soon as AC went into the paper tape punch motor here, it went up in smoke. So what I did was I promptly unplugged the Canon connector from the connector in the back and tucked it kind of right out of the way, and then gave Bob a call. And we sat down and had a legitimate conversation about what the future of the machine was, what kind of timeline we were on, and we both came to the conclusion that the punch was a very low priority. If we're punching new tape for this machine, we're going to be writing the software on a modern computer and punching it with something like the Facet paper tape punch that I have. We had zero intentions to ever use the punch capability of this machine. So I just left the plug here tucked kind of out of the way for years and forgot about it. But during shipping, that plug kind of rattled loose a little bit and worked its way over to the side here. I didn't catch this when we installed the machine at System Source. And one of the times while we had it powered up with the doors closed, we pulled the sled right on out, and when we pushed it back in, that plug fell off to the side and got drug right along the back side of the door here, particularly on row B, shorting out all of the pins across probably about 20 cards. We immediately blew the plus 160 volt fuse and gravely injured the machine. Fortunately, I had a cadre of wonderfully smart people there to help out. Lloyd fired up his laptop and we got stuck in heavy troubleshooting. After replacing a blown plus 160 volt fuse, the machine would fire up, but it wouldn't read in any data from the paper tape. With a limited tool set at hand, the troubleshooting process was slow going. We were chasing down problems and testing potential logic paths to see what was holding us up. I was confident the tubes were totally fine, but there are 3,400 germanium diodes on this machine, and those would absolutely not be fine with 160 volts crammed down them. We worked on it until near midnight on Friday, then came back at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, and amazingly, we got the machine back up and fully operational. In total, we only blasted 7 diodes, but thankfully we had spare diodes on hand, and once they were changed out, the G15 ran flawlessly for the rest of the day. We had it powered up, chugging out demo programs and printing Mandelbrot sets for nearly 12 hours straight. It was an absolute blast. I want to thank everybody that took time out of their schedules to come to the event. It was absolutely stunning, and I think over the 2-day weekend we had close to 300 people come through, which is mind-blowing, completely mind-blowing. I had an absolute blast, and I hope that everybody that came had a wonderful time too. And I want to be ultra clear here. The Bendix G15 is not my project. It is our project. It would not have been possible to get that machine going without the help of Lloyd, who was there every step of the way, John, who knew more about mechanical wizardry than I could ever hope to, Bill, who can program for the G15 better than probably anybody alive today, Paul, who wrote an unbelievably good emulator, Raker, who was kind enough to lend me all of the footage that you guys just saw, and every one of you that sat down and watched the videos and contributed with ideas and wonderful directions to run down. It was just, the G15 was a life-changing thing, and I'm so glad that you guys were as supportive as you were and were with me every step of the way. But this video is not actually about the G15, it's about the Centurion, which is inside waiting for me to get back onto it now that I'm back from Maryland. So let's get to work. The first thing I need to do is pull the old MUX card out and remove the modification that I made to force it into 4800 baud. Now that we're using SSH to connect to it, this thing should default to 9600 baud, which should be totally fine over the network. And then now here we are in my room at my main editing station here, and I want to set up the BO96 TrippLite terminal server so that we can actually use that to connect to the Centurion. But like, this is not a great terminal server. I would not recommend it. It is an absolute nightmare to set up. I'm gonna go through and set up most of the things, but in reality, it's probably gonna take a lot more. When I set up the printer, it took like 3 days of pain. So we need to connect to it. It's just a Linux box, but it's a very old Linux box. So it's going to be using a different host key algorithm. So I have to use a little program called SSH pass. So I'll just type in SSH pass. I'm going to define my password as default. That's what the manual says it should be. We're connecting via SSH, and then I need to type in host key algorithms equal plus SSH-DSS. I don't really know what any of that means, except that if I type that, it works. So we're gonna type that. And then my username is root, and the IP address is 192.168.1.108. If I hit return on that, we should connect up to the TrippLite in there, and I should get a little hash symbol that shows that I've connected. And yeah, there we go. I can do an ls, and you can see it's just like a regular Linux box, but we configure it in specific ways using the config utility, which is kind of built into it. I can do, say, config-g for, let's do port 1 here. This is going to show all of the configurations that I have punched in for the LA50 printer. You can see we're character size equals 8, flow control equals hardware, label LA50, we have to give it a name so that we know what to connect to, so on and so forth. So I'm just gonna kind of use that as a bit of a template to set up the port for the Centurion. So I'm just gonna go through and type some of these in right quick, and I'll make it run fast for you guys. And this is why I say that the BO96 TrippLite is terrible. It just crashed. I haven't even tried to tell it to set up these settings, but all right, I guess I gotta go reset it, and I'll try to get back to where I am. All right, one quick reboot later, and I'm back into it. And I've got a bunch of stuff set up here, and you can see that a lot of the stuff that I set up here is probably redundant and not necessary. Like, I've set up SDT stuff, but I think if I'm in mode port manager, then the SDT stuff is ignored. But There you go. That's all the stuff that I have set up. I want to actually now enact these. So I got to do config-A, and this is just going to run a configurator that sets up absolutely everything. And so after this is finished, I should be able to open a new tab here, and then using SSH pass, I should be able to connect to the Centurion via the TrippLite. But I gotta go turn the Centurion on first. I'll be right back. All right, Centurion's on. Okay, so I can type SSH pass-p, and then my username is going to be Usagi. We're connecting via SSH. I got to do the whole host key algorithms equals plus SSH-DSS. My username is going to be Usagi. The port I'm connecting to is going to be CMUX0, which is what we named it. And then the IP address is going to be 192.168.1.108. Now, if this works, we should be SSH'd into the Centurion. That would be very, very cool. Well, we're sitting here with a blinking cursor. I have no idea if that worked, but let me tab the enter key here and yeah, check that out. Oh, that's so cool. We got a slash. That seems like such a wild thing to be excited about, but we should be within TOS, the memory monitor that's on the diag card in the Centurion. So if I do something like M1000 and I hit a couple of spaces here, I should be getting something back out of that. Looks like 90 BE. That's kind of strange looking. I'm getting very weird things that I'm not expecting here. But let's do M0100. See. Well, that's good and bad. I think I've got something not right because that should be hex coming through. Oh, I think I set parity wrong. I think I set parity to none, and parity needs to be even. Let me switch over to this other tab here. We'll scroll up and we can see that, yeah, parity is set to none. That is definitely incorrect. We need that set to even. So I'm going to do a config-s and then config.ports.port3.parity equals even. Hit return on that, and then I'm going to run a config-a. It's going to run the configurator again. That should restart everything. So now if I go back over to this tab here, we should still be connected up to the Centurion. Oh, I need to go into caps locks here. So I can do M0100 57, 57, 57. That's what it's supposed to be. M1000 99, 99, 99, 99, 99, B9. I think that's correct. So let's try something. If I do an M1000 here, and then I Alt-Tab over to the Centurion wiki here. All right, 23 C8 E5 EC, EC. Then we'll do an EFF2, then ECE4A1, ECE4A1, then an 8D8A, 0071, then 8001. We'll hit enter on that. Let's re-inspect that. 623, that all definitely looks correct to me. So let's do a G1000 and a Laurel off of a real deal Centurion printed on my Linux terminal here. That is the coolest thing ever. So there it is, probably the weirdest server cabinet anywhere in the world, with a DEC LA50 on top, a Cisco 40 terabyte storage server, and a real deal CPU5 Centurion that we can SSH into via a serial terminal server. This is so cool. It's all on and running and working right now. This is like the first real deal step towards getting a Centurion permanently online, which has been a goal of mine for years. And I am beyond excited to start chasing that goal down in proper earnest. But there are some serious hurdles that we're gonna have to overcome. First, storage. A memory monitor is cool, but there's really not a whole lot that we can do with it. So we need to get some kind of storage onto this machine. It would be great to have the real deal CPU5 OS up and running, but I'm not going to bring a Hawk in here, so we got to come up with some kind of emulated storage. And this conversation's come up a lot, and I don't have any good ideas. Every idea I hear seems very hard to achieve with this particular collection of hardware. So if you have ideas, jump over to the Discord and let's get a real deal conversation going about this, and maybe we can figure out how to get emulated storage going on this thing. There's also one more thing that we're working on, which has to do with a diag card that is going to do some really special, really cool stuff. So that's coming up soon in the future too. So there's a lot more Centurion content coming. It just is gonna end up happening in this room, which is a little strange. I used to film in here and it feels weird to kind of come back in here. But I want to thank you all so much for watching and hanging out with me today on this kind of strange episode where my beard started big and ended up small. What a weird day. What a weird life I lead. This is crazy. Thank you guys. Hope to see you in the next one.